Good morning. I'm Gord Long with GordonTLong.com. As part of our ongoing series on financial repression, I have Adam Andrzejewski, chairman of American Transparency and the founder of OpenTheBooks.com, joining us this morning. Welcome, Adam.
Great to be on the program, Gordon. Hey, great job with the last name. It kind of reminds me of the old Smucker's commercial. You know, with a name like Smucker's, it has to be good. Well, with a name like Andrzejewski, it has to be good, right?
Hey, I grew up not far from a Polish community in Winnipeg, Manitoba, so I know all about this. It is Polish, right?
It is, right.
Okay.
As I like to say, I'm 51% Polish. And I got two great stories. On my father's side, you know, my grandparents in the late 1920s came from Poland into the Polish neighborhoods around Chicago. And on my mother's side, we go back to New Amsterdam. So we've got both, you know, tremendous stories. Two stories that have made America great. You know, the early immigrants, and then followed by the recent stories.
And that is what has made America great, and maybe it'll continue to do so. Adam, could you give our listeners a brief overview of your background so they know who they're listening to here before we get into our subject here this morning?
Yeah, that's great. So I grew up in a small town, Herscher, Illinois, and there's only about 1,200 people that can actually claim they're from Herscher. It was a nice town. One road in, one road out, no stoplights to this day. I went to a state school in northern Illinois. In 1997, my brother and I started out in business, and we did local telephone directories, yellow page directories for small towns, and I call it my 10 years worth of bloodshot eyes, where we literally worked around the clock to make something of ourselves. And in the end, that's why I fight so hard on public policy and politics, because over that 10-year period, we were able to go from zero to $20 million of sales and become an overnight success. But it came with a lot of sacrifice. For 6 years, every single employee that we had out-earned us. I used that success in business. I ran for governor in Illinois in 2010. I came within 5% of winning the Republican primary. One of the greatest privileges of my lifetime was accepting the endorsement from one of the greatest champions of freedom and liberty in the 20th century, Lech Wałęsa. He flew in from Poland and endorsed my campaign in Chicago. Like I said, I lost by 5% in that race. I ran on a robust, aggressive transparency platform to post every dime online in real time. I lost the race, but I've executed on the promise at our website at openthebooks.com, where we have 2.3 billion individual captured public transactions that we now track.
Well, some of the work that you're now doing, and we're going to get into that, is really, I applaud you at what you've done, taken your success, and now taken it in a direction to really help many and all people. Our theme today is part of an ongoing theme we have on financial repression, the whole subject. And I wonder, just to kick it off, if you could give us any views you have on this macroprudential strategy, as we refer to it as.
Well, I view it more in terms of cronyism. And specifically, I don't use the phrase crony capitalism, because I think capitalism is what my brother and I practiced in business alongside our 150 employees. You know, that free marketplace where sales are made and lost at the point of sale based on the merit of your product and the promise of your company. What we find in the public sector, in the 2.3 billion individual captured government transactions, is just abject waste, fraud, corruption, and abuse, not only at the federal level, which we see the stories in the newspaper oftentimes, but we dig down into the state units of government. We dig down into the local units of government. And there's almost a reverse subsidiarity right now, where the local units are your most corrupt units and hardly get any sunshine.
Yeah, exactly. Literally no visibility. And the town and the kinds of, I don't like the word corruption, but certainly it needs more visibility and transparency. It's certainly in question. Why are you doing this?
On that, Gordon, on that, in Illinois, we have our property taxes are driven at the local level, and we have a strange and weird creation that's now a property tax avoidance strategy that's now being popularized all across the state of Illinois, and it's called a shouse, a shed house, a tiny house, because property taxes are so high. People are using these strange and weird creations to avoid the leftist, statist economic experiment that has become Illinois.
a regular guest of ours, Miss Shedlock, is screaming about his property taxes in Chicago, and matter of fact is talking about potentially leaving Chicago over it. And he told me the other day that sales taxes are going to 10 and a quarter, and he said, that's it. That from 9 and a quarter. I was stunned.
Right. And there's a specific reason for that. And it's the intersection, obviously, of political cash, local spending being driven by high property taxes. In the city of Chicago, we studied Rahm Emanuel's checkbook spending, and we mashed it up with his campaign cash. And what we found was, although he had issued an executive order, he said he was going to stop the historic culture of corruption in the city of Chicago. He was going to end pay to play in the city of Chicago. What we found in the first 4 years of his administration was that 600 city vendors gave him $7 million worth of campaign cash. And from Mayor Daley forward, those lucky 600 vendors have received $2 billion worth of city payments. And so what we find is that the politicians are just in the same bed with the business and the cultural elites. And they're selling us out.
What's prompted you to take on this challenge?
Well, my story of being in business steeled my spine for all the difficult conversations ahead. And I'll submit to you that right now, at this moment in time in America, there are no easy conversations left. With $18 trillion worth of federal debt, all the states, most of the states, except for a handful, with steep long-term liabilities, and even at the local level, like in the city of Chicago, per man, woman, and child, there's a $19,000 long-term pension liability. So there's no easy conversations left. In year 3 of the business that my brother and I had started, we were upside down the $100,000 of savings that we had. We hit a sales milestone. We sold $1 million in our 3rd year of Yellow Page advertising space. And that was the year we nearly ran out of cash, because you pay everything in advance. And but for another dime's worth of regulation, taxes, and fees, we were gone. This company today, my brother's been able to navigate the internet age, the electronic age. It is the largest publisher of hometown telephone directories in the country, with roughly 600 communities being published for. That company, my story, all of that would have been gone in year 3 if government was just a little bit bigger. And that's why I fight so hard to rein in the excesses of government and limit their power.
What have you been able to achieve so far?
Well, I tell you, in every single tranche of spending data we look at, we have questions. And I have to say, every single unit of government that we've investigated, we have not found one, from the federal to the federal agencies or state government agencies, or at the local levels, we've not found one operating well. For instance, at my junior college, at the College of DuPage, it's the 2nd largest college in Illinois, we found that right now, because of our investigation, the president, the treasurer, the comptroller of the school are all out on paid administrative leave and will probably be fired. And subpoenas are flowing from the local state's attorney, the FBI, and state-level subpoenas into the school. So every single thing that we look at, we don't find it running well.
Is it malpractice? Is it corruption? Is it just incompetence?
Well, I think
or is it influence peddling? What is there a commonality in here?
I think it's the perfect storm of incompetence, entitlement, and corruption. So for instance, in Illinois, property taxes drive those local salaries that we were talking about. There are 17,000 teachers and education administrators that make more than 6 figures. And I can tell you in my hometown, the driver's ed teacher makes $160,000 a year. So that's
driver's ed teacher?
That's right. In my district. So that's Illinois. Let's go to California. The problem is 5 times worse in California. In California, we found in our data, literally 15,000 local employees that out-earn every governor of the 50 states. And those 15,000 employees clean off at taxpayer expense every single year $5 billion a year. And you have the lifeguards at the city of Newport Beach, 5 of them making 6 figures, up to $113,000 a year, and they had 6% pay raises last year.
I've seen some of these numbers. They're stunning, and you wonder how could it ever got to that level? And that's beyond incompetence.
Well, I think
is it unions? Is there some driving force that's allowing that to happen?
Actually, you're very smart on that. The lifeguards 3 years ago, it came before the city council in Newport Beach, California, to privatize the lifeguard service, and there was plenty of bids for it. They had 12 lifeguards at the time, making over 6 figures, and now they have 10. So they didn't privatize it. The union won. They just scaled back by 20% the number of lifeguards making 6 figures. But what we find is, you and I, we complain and we vent about Washington, D.C., and we vent about the decisions coming out of our state capitals. But I've come to the conclusion that we can't complain until we simply take a look at the spending in our own backyards, where we have some control, where we know the players, where we know the relationships. And when you look at the spending in your municipality or junior college like we did, when you start asking questions, demand answers and start there. Because D.C. is that bad, and our state capital is that bad because our local units are that bad.
Well, what it is in many ways to me is those who organize get what they want. And I'm not picking on unions, but they're well organized and they have hard objectives and they drive hard bargains. Good for them. Lobbyists have goals and they drive hard bargains, and they're at it every single day fighting for what it is they want. But we, the taxpayer, are misinformed, lack information, and we don't show up other than on election day with misinformation. So and so we expect our politicians to be fighting for us. They're fighting when they got a lineup sitting out in their lobby of the others, not the taxpayer. I mean, it's just human nature what's going to influence things, right? Is that I'm overstating that?
So a large portion of our work and our mission is to simply give the tools to regular citizens to be able to fight City Hall and to be able to win. And if you think about it, our founders recognized the power of knowledge, and they wrote into our original papers, Article 1, Section 9 of the United States Constitution, paraphrased, it says that a periodic reporting of revenues and expenses must be given to the people on a timely basis. And we just think that in the internet age, in the age of big data, that simply means post every dime online in real time. That's our mission. And in keeping with that, you can have 2 billion lines of data, but unless you contextualize that data, it doesn't mean much. So people can download our free Open the Books mobile application for Apple and Android. And in that mobile application, it shows you, starting in Washington, D.C., soon after Labor Day, 50% of the country will have state spending for 50% of the country in the mobile application. And right now we've got the salaries in 34,000 separate units of government across the country in that mobile app. You can see right where you live where government wastes your money.
Do you think there's going to be a need and a desire for people to look at this data, this information, or and get this knowledge?
Absolutely. People are stunned when they take a look. The most common response is, "Oh my gosh, I'm in the wrong business," which is kind of a reverse of what we want. But they also say, and I don't care if you're a progressive liberal or a libertarian, the other response is, "This is wrong." And so transparency cuts across all ideologies. And when people actually see what's going on, it makes a lot of sense to them and they want to get involved. And that's the way back to the country.
What's in your roadmap? You mentioned in September with an app, but what kinds of plans do you have over the next 3 to 6 months?
So we have a report. It's an oversight report where we show people what our data can be used for. It's called the Federal Transfer Report. And we just completed a federal transfer report on the Export-Import Bank reauthorization by Congress. We played a small role in that. Other organizations were on that for a lot longer than we did, but our role was impactful. And for the first time in 81 years, that bank wasn't reauthorized. We are coming out with a report on the Environmental Protection Agency here in September. I think it's our best work ever. It backs off the other reports that we've done on federal farm subsidies in urban areas, where we identified Reverend Minister Louis Farrakhan received over $300,000 of federal farm subsidies at his home address in Hyde Park. It piggybacks on the work that we did for the first time in our nation's history. We quantified the federal flow of funds into the Fortune 100 companies. It was $1.2 trillion over the course of 12 years. My favorite statistic out of that was the Fed spent $18 billion with UPS and FedEx. They forgot they have their own mail service delivery. We played a key role in the veterans scandal back a year ago, contextualizing the salaries and bonuses in all the troubled VA centers across the country. We have 3 more reports due out between now and the end of the year. People should come to our website at openthebooks.com, sign up so you're on our list so we can keep in touch with one another.
Outstanding advice. The goals and missions. What at the end of the day, what do you really hope to accomplish here? I understand broader information to the public, but is there anything more concrete?
Yes, to limit power, to rein in the excess. Okay. And make sure, and it's a mission that both the left and the right can agree with. Obviously, the right's going to want to cut the waste, and the left's going to want to reallocate that effectively into programs to help people. So at its basic level, the first phase is to capture every dime taxed and spent at every level of government across the country, federal, state, and local. And we're about 18 months out from performing on that promise. We're very, very excited about it. We feel it's a database of about 5 to 6 billion individual government transactions. After that, phase 2 is to develop partnerships to be able to push this out to organizations with their established membership on the left and the right, and to put tens of millions of eyes on this spending, again, at all levels of government across the country. And the third phase is we're in-house going to develop contextual tools to mash it up with different databases, just like we did when we fact-checked Rahm Emanuel for the John Stossel show on Fox on his campaign promise to end pay-to-play in Chicago. So a lot more coming in that direction over the course of the next couple of years.
Now, Adam, you're a non-profit organization structurally?
We are. We're a public charity. We're American Transparency, and our website is openthebooks.com. So we are a IRS-recognized 501c3 public charity.
Okay. We have to wrap, Adam. I just want to make sure today that our listeners got some visibility to the outstanding work that you're leading the way. You're a true patriot, and I compliment you on this. Any last messages you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Well, my last message is join the transparency revolution. We welcome you on board, and look, it's going to take all of us. The greatest and highest office in the land is the office of citizen. And as Brandeis said, we have a duty. We have a duty to remind people that in America, the citizens govern. We have left our role as citizens, and we need to reclaim it.
Yeah, it is about we the people, but it tends not to feel like that on any given day, right? But that is our role. We have a responsibility. It's ours to make sure we exercise, and it comes with knowledge.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, the more knowledge you get, the more you're going to get yourself worked up. And I mean this in a positive way of realizing the magnitude of the challenges that are in front of us. Ignorance isn't bliss. And there's a lot to be learned here to be able to constructively then fix it, because there's so much waste, that's out there. Got a break. Absolute pleasure. Going to have you back, see how you're doing with this. And I'm going to sign up because I could use this data every single day in macroeconomics.
Outstanding. Thank you for your interest in our mission. It's great to be on the program.
Talk to you again. Have a good weekend. Bye.